Latin America is feeling the full force of the coronavirus pandemic. Socioeconomic inequality, densely populated cities, and an overstretched healthcare system are exacerbating what is quickly becoming a severe crisis. In Brazil, the new epicenter of the virus, President Jair Bolsonaro, the so-called Trump of the tropics, has dismissed the disease as quote-unquote a little flu and continually downplayed the seriousness of the problem.
Ultrapassou o número de mortes da China hoje. O Brasil já
Coronavírus.
o senhor não vai.
Lamento, quer que faça o quê? Eu sou Messias, mas não faço milagre.
Plano.
So this week we're speaking to major players in Latin American politics, public health, and culture. Dr. Marcos Espinal of the Pan American Health Organization, Sergio Moro, a former justice minister who is one of the most influential people in Brazil, and J Balvin, a Colombian reggaeton star who is one of the biggest recording artists on earth. Dr. Marcos Espinal is the head of communicable diseases at the Pan American Health Organization, a branch of the WHO. He's one of the top experts fighting the current pandemic across the Americas. Dr. Espinal, thank you for joining us.
My pleasure.
So I want to jump right in. The Pan American Health Organization, of which you're a part, has said that we have more than 3.3 million COVID-19 cases reported in the region of the Americas, more than any other region around the world. And today we are home to nearly half of the COVID-19 cases. Can you explain the scope of the coronavirus problem now in Latin and South America?
Well, globally we have today 8 million cases and more than 400,000 deaths. And in the Americas region, it's considered today the epicenter of this pandemic. When you take into account that Brazil has overtaken as the number 2 country in the world in terms of cases and death, and also Peru is becoming on the top 10, Chile also, it's clear that the problem in Latin America and the Caribbean, it's a major issue.
In Mexico, for example, you have the leaders saying it's not a problem. Brazil might be even worse in that they probably have the worst total amount of cases. And it, at one point, stopped sharing data with the rest of the world, saying, we're not going to give you the number of our cases. Is your biggest enemy here populist politicians who are sitting there saying, it's not a problem, we're not even going to share the data?
We cannot control what head of states and other leaders are saying. But remember, Latin America and the Caribbean, and so is Brazil and Mexico, high rate of inequalities, high urbanization rate, not well planned, huge cities like Lima, Mexico City, Rio, Sao Paulo, and huge informal economy where people have to go out and it's difficult to do social distance and all these things. So it's a major issue in Latin America when you compare to Asia and Europe.
Speaking of which, the Chilean government is having a hard time with food scarcity for its citizens, leading to massive protests, which is sort of creating a perfect breeding ground for the spread of the virus. How do you mitigate against that? Because people are, on one hand, starving, on the other hand, spreading the virus.
That's a critical point, and we understand that. Make sure, if you're going to implement full lockdown, the government is able to secure the supply chains for food. But innovation is important here. Chile, for instance, is doing a great testing program. It's probably the country with the best testing program in the whole region. But regardless, we're still learning from this virus.
Speaking of sort of a post-mortem, if you will, on the pandemic, the last global pandemic of this size was the Spanish influenza. Since you guys do not only South America, but also North America and Canada as well, you're uniquely placed to give us the answer. Is it going to follow the same trajectory in that it goes into the Southern Hemisphere for their winter and then back up here for our autumn and winter?
We still don't know the answer of that question, but it might. Flu, it's becoming also an issue in Argentina, Chile, Brazil. So coupled with COVID, this might be a recipe for a more difficult problem to deal with.
There's all kinds of systemic problems that this is just blowing open. Will this force actual change going forward?
By all means, you're correct. This pandemic has exposed a series of systemic problems. We're not dealing only with a public health problem. We're dealing also with economic problem and social problem. I mean, Latin America is the region of the world most inequitable where we have several population groups living in situation of vulnerability, indigenous people living in the Amazon basin, and we hear what is happening there, people deprived of liberty, of prisoners, women, children, Afro-descendants. So the lesson expected is this will be repeated. Investment in health, investment in education, investment in the people will help to solve in the long run these systemic problems.
On that note, Dr. Marcos Espinal, thank you so much for your time today.
My pleasure. Thank you.
Beleza? Valeu, valeu.
Eu vou começar a empacotar minhas coisas e vou providenciar aqui o meu encaminhamento da minha carta de demissão.
Sergio Moro rose to prominence as a judge during the biggest corruption scandal in Brazilian history. In 2018, he was appointed justice minister by the country's populist president, Jair Bolsonaro, but quit over even more corruption allegations. He has since become one of the president's most vocal critics and been called one of Brazil's most influential people. Mr. Moro, thank you for joining us.
It's a pleasure.
I know you're very busy, so I'm going to jump right in. With over 800,000 cases of COVID, Brazil is now second only to the US. Indeed, Brazil has emerged as the new global epicenter of the pandemic, with the world's highest rate of transmission and a health system on the verge of collapse. Meanwhile, the president, Mr. Bolsonaro, is downplaying the crisis, even to the point where he said, I'm going to stop sending data to the rest of the world. Why has it become so political in Brazil?
Well, it's a difficult question to answer, but the president, he usually says that it would undermine economy. Of course, there is a point in preserving jobs, but we need to take care first of the health and the life of the people.
So the president, President Bolsonaro, has been very, highly reported on both sides as a populist, much like America, much like Trump, very galvanizing. So some people really like him, and some people really hate him. But repeatedly, especially with COVID, he's downplayed it, with videos, where he's doing water sports. He's called it repeatedly a little flu. The concern is overblown.
Cara, quem fala de eu não sou coveiro, tá vendo?
What do you think of his reaction to the coronavirus in Brazil? What's your opinion of that?
Since the beginning, he downplayed the gravity of the pandemic. He was always against this social distance measure. And everywhere in the world, it was used to reduce the spread of the coronavirus in the population. So I think the word that you used, kind of populist, is the correct one. The denial of science, sometimes the denial of the reality. For example, the gravity of this pandemic.
You're doing a fantastic job. Great job.
It's very difficult to understand. He has strong support. I think he has support of about 30% of the population. But even for this part of the population, it's hard to understand how to support this behavior about the pandemic.
Some governors are reacting, and mayors are reacting. We've talked to some of those mayors and governors who are very angry at the president.
Please, Mr. President, stay home and shut your mouth. Stay home and shut your mouth.
They've been reacting to the crisis, and the president's responded by calling them names.
Aproveitar o vírus, tá bosta de prefeito lá de Manaus agora, abrindo covas coletiva, bosta.
Why do you think it's become so combative between the governors and the mayors and the president?
The problem is to turn the pandemic in a political issue. And in certain way, I think in Brazil, we are suffering, as other countries in the world, of this extreme polarization. But we could not deny science, in dealing with the pandemic, and turning it a political issue is a very bad policy.
This is a new way. This is no beginning. This is a wake-up call. I know it might sound weird, but I think it's beautiful.
You've been involved in taking down 3 former presidents for corruption, and now Bolsonaro and his allies are under investigation. Could he be taken down for corruption, or indeed the election results overturned?
I cannot give an opinion about that. It will depend on the Congress and on the Supreme Court. But unfortunately, you need to implement a strong agenda, a strong anti-corruption agenda, and I enter in the government with this goal. Unfortunately, I suffered some resistance, and I did not have the full support of the president. So there was this difficult with the anti-corruption agenda, and in recently the president tried to interfere in the federal police, and I decided that it was my time to go.
And my last question would be, how would you rate President Bolsonaro's response to the coronavirus in general?
I would not rate it very well, but well, let me say that still time to change. We are still suffering the pandemic, and the president and the government have all the opportunities to change its behavior and try to avoid more deaths or a great increase in the number of them. There's always time to change.
On that note, and let's hope so, Sergio Moro, thank you very much for your time today.
Thank you very much.
Now, we usually speak to policymakers, economists, and scientists on the show, but the current crisis is also taking a huge cultural toll. So we wanted to hear from a major figure in the world of entertainment. So we got in touch with J Balvin, a Colombian reggaeton artist who also happens to be the most streamed musician on earth. Jose, thanks for being with us today. Where are you right now?
Thank you. I'm in Medellin, Colombia.
So a lot of people are worried. So now we're seeing in countries like Ecuador, Peru, Argentina, Mexico, a huge increase now in cases and sadly in deaths. So what is the feeling right now in Latin America, South America, about what's happening with COVID?
I've been checking more, of course, what's going on right here in my country, It's definitely a really hard moment. People feel really frustrated. And just not even that, this is still a kind of third world country, so it's not a rich country. It's a lot of poor people in my country, that they need to go out and work because they live day by day. Colombia, we react really fast. When this happened in the States, we were already closing the country.
En desarrollo del estado de emergencia, aplicaremos un aislamiento preventivo obligatorio para todos los colombianos.
But the feeling still frustrating for a lot of people. I'm blessed because I do music and I still got so many ways to connect, and work.
You released a record during COVID, during this pandemic called Colores. Maybe you could tell us a little bit about what it's like to release an album during a pandemic.
I was like, I'm not gonna be this competitor that I'm always been. And let's drop the album and let's see how the people is gonna react to it. At least if they're gonna have a great moment listening to the album, checking the vibes. And that's what we did. I dropped the album and I didn't care about sales and everything. It's really weird, because you used to, go to all the different medias, do all the media tour and feeling the feedback in person. Like see people in the streets vibing with the album, or people, in the nightclubs or in parties, which is not happening right now.
So during quarantine, a lot of the big music festivals globally, Coachella here, have been canceled or postponed. Now, musicians make a lot of their money, or most of their money, through live performance. So how does this change the music industry?
I mean, it all depends on the strategy or the project that you have in your life. You know, like I wanted to stop doing shows this year, you know, because I wanted to take time for myself and just like focus on how to connect with the people in a different way. So I was looking, you know, to just like make games, you know, invest in technology. You know, I was just thinking how to connect with the audience, and then everything happens, and almost all my colleagues are suffering because they had tours they had to cancel. I think this is waking us up of and remember that we're humans and that we're really fragile.
You know, we talked a little bit about this, but you know, different ways of connecting with fans. You did a show, One World Together at Home, which is an at-home concert with Lady Gaga, Elton John, Taylor Swift, Lizzo. Do you see that as happening more and more going forward, as we don't know if we're going to even have any live music this year?
I know that it just doesn't feel the same. Live streaming shows, they're nice, but they're never gonna be as nice as being on a real show. You like to feel the energy, you like to feel, you know, just the way to walk out of your house and go into a concert. Let's look for some other way we can elevate the live streaming. I don't know, put in some effects or something that is gonna be like, wow, mind blowing. You know, something that you don't really can see, something that you didn't see when you were on live show. I think it's gonna be like two moments of when general music, you know, not just my album. It's gonna be one through quarantine and another phase of the music after quarantine.
How do you see this reshaping things? I mean, you were saying we're looking for new ways of connecting with people, like augmented reality, virtual reality. There'll be a sort of tech renaissance mixed with music and art. So, do you see this as being a sort of tech, art, capitalism renaissance, like all in together, or?
Yes, that you just say it, and I didn't think about it, but it's the Renaissance, it's the new one.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah, this is the new one. This is a new way. This is no beginning. This is a wake up call. This is a. I know it might sound weird, but I think it's beautiful. I'm just concerned. I mean, about the the powerful guys in the planet, the way they acting. Some of them are just not. It doesn't look like they're conscious about what's really going on.
Like who's not acting correctly, you think?
I'm not one to judge, but the way like Trump is been saying things and reacting, I just don't like it. It's just some weird stuff, man. That is just like sad to see one of the most powerful guys in the planet being unconscious about what's really going on a deeper level. He's conscious about economically, but I don't know how to see about the human beings. So I think this is a serious opportunity to listen to your kids, to listen to the youth, and see what they really want and how they see the future.
You say that you look for the positive in things, and I know you've been called the Zen master of reggaeton. So you're into meditation. You know, what would you say to the millions of people out there watching this that, you know, about meditation, about staying positive during these tough times? What are you doing?
This is a great moment when you start getting to know yourself. I tweeted something like 2 days ago that is like, quarantine looks like money and fame. Like it can get you the best or the worst of you. So what I'm looking for is just how to elevate myself, and that's through meditation. You know, meditation has saved my life because I don't do drugs. I don't even drink. You know, and everything is things that through meditation I can have my brain waves more calm. So yeah, meditation definitely I think is one of the biggest options you can have now. And I think this is a great moment for the kids to get to know about meditation. I try to do it really disciplined 2 times a day. Ideally, at least do it once.
You're one of the biggest music stars in the world. You're saying, look, either you focus on the positive or you spiral into the negative. What message do you have to say to people to hold on to the positive?
The more grateful we are, the more blessings we get. This is a real moment where we really can just wake up and be like, I can breathe, I can open my eyes, I can walk, I'm not in the hospital. I think the best way to feel better and to feel that it's a great day is being grateful. And it sounds kind of dumb, but it's powerful. You know, just being thankful and being grateful for what you have, even if you don't have a lot. At least me, I'm gonna try to do my best to just not fall again in not being conscious about a lot of things.
You know, what do you see, happening with young people? Because it could be a springboard to change, or it could be a springboard to despair.
I think people are gonna be like, I'm checking all these kids, and there's a lot of doing great stuff. I mean, like, in every crisis, there's the biggest opportunities. A lot of things are gonna change for the better. So I think this is a serious opportunity to listen to your kids, to listen to the youth, and see what they really want and how they see the future.
If you have one message or anything to say to the world's young people, what would that be for our last thought today?
I would tell them to stay positive, even though it's a hard moment, to be grateful for what we have. And I hope that when we go back to normal, which is never going to be as before, but I'm not saying it's going to be bad. It's going to be just a new and a different moment,
All right, Jose, thank you so much for your time today.
No, thank you. Thank you so much.